Hi, I'm Richie, otherwise known as Dirty Secrets, and this is my Inside the Track for Traxsource for my latest release, That Last Record, out on Space Disco now. Now this track is a long time coming. I actually started it in May 2019 and I was playing it in sets all throughout that summer. It's all based around a piano sample that I found and I kind of built everything around that. And that's where the vibes kind of come from. When I actually made the track, I just called it Piano Track. It was just this untitled piano track. And as I noticed I was playing at the end of the sets, it became That Last Record. So that's kind of how the name came about. But really, I was playing it all sets that summer, and then obviously 2020 happened and there were no sets or anything else like that. And then finally, when we started opening up this year, 2021, I dug it out and I started listening to it and I thought, well, why haven't I done anything to it? I haven't done anything with it. So I sent it off to Space Disco, they loved it, and that's how the record came out. So today I'm going to go through and kind of show you how I kind of made it, all the different parts, where I got that piano sample from, and how I kind of built everything around that. So this is the Ableton project for this track, and it's in a different kind of format to my normal tracks. Because it kind of came about by a piano sample, I really kind of started with that and then chucked everything on top of it. So let's start off with a piano sample and have a look at that. So that's the piano sample that runs throughout. That's the one that I found. And the original sample is actually at 160 BPM. If I have a look at it in the browser, you can see how it actually sounds. So as you can hear, it's really kind of slow. So I've actually taken it and I've cut it all up. Now I could have just literally done it to the right tempo, but I wanted to have that still kind of that wonderful kind of slow kind of feel. So that's why I've chopped up every single note hit in there and kind of got it to the right speed. And it kind of goes throughout the whole track like that. The sample pretty much plays throughout, but it kind of filters in and out. And I use a bit of sidechain as well to kind of duck that kick as well. And then it kind of filters in and out. Just goes a bit lower within the mix. Now you can almost see my thought process within this track, because I kind of started off with the piano that we got here, and then I kind of added a kick into it because I wanted to kind of get that kind of beat going throughout, and I got that side chain with the piano as well. So you can hear that ducking of the piano under the kick. That's the sidechain happening. And I did it in a way that's not subtle. I wanted something that's very obvious that it's kind of ducking. I wanted that kind of more extreme kind of effect. And then before I got any of the rest of the drums in or anything else like that, I wanted to get the bass in there. And the way I was kind of thinking about this track was that I almost wanted this kind of original kind of sample, almost like I was sampling it from an old record. So I wanted that kind of bass to feel quite real, quite original, almost like a real electric bass. And I wanted it to feel part of that sample. So almost like the piano and the bass are kind of together, and I'm actually sampling them both together. So you just got that kind of subby kind of feel. And again, it's sidechain against that kick. So every time the kick hits, it kind of ducks that kick in the same way the piano does. And they kind of all merge together quite nicely. So those three elements are pretty much the backbone of the whole track, and I kind of added stuff on top of that. So my usual kind of drums, the vocals and things like that. But that's where the whole idea for the track kind of came about. It was all based around that piano and then finding stuff that kind of fit nicely with it. So these are the rest of the drums going on within the track. These are my tops. These are all the snares, the claps, the hats. They all kind of sit within here. And because I was working quite quickly, I was working with a lot of kind of drum loops, and I was kind of cutting bits out of them. So I've got a whole load of layers here of snares, for example. So I've got 3 layers of just snares within there, and these are loops that I've kind of picked out. But if I jump into all of these, you'll kind of see that I'm automating the volume on them. So I'm only including maybe 1 sample out of the whole loop. I've just found something within that loop that I like. I've kind of cut it out, so it might just be a snare, and I've kind of cut that out of the loop. And then we got this open hat, which I tend to call slosh kind of hat. It's this kind of really slow, kind of housey kind of hat. And then just to kind of fill things up, I've got this kind of filler loop, which kind of sits nicely within the mix, gives it a little bit of texture. And together they all kind of sound like this. And then bringing back in the piano, the kick and the bass again, and it sounds like this. So at that point, I'd pretty much got an instrumental kind of track, which was working really nicely. It was bumpy, the drums were kind of bumping along nicely, that piano was sitting lovely within the mix, but it was just missing the vocals. I felt like it needed some vocals, and I always had in my head some kind of gospel kind of vocals. Now, the original idea was maybe I'd get like a singer to come in and do a top line over the top of it, but I wanted to kind of get a feel for it then and there. So I kind of went on to Splice and had a look, see if I could find any interesting vocal samples that kind of went with it. So I was kind of looking for uplifting kind of gospel sounds, definitely a female kind of vocal I was thinking of. So I was kind of going through and I found a few samples that kind of worked. And I kind of layered them up to kind of give that live kind of gospel singing kind of feel. So the first one is this kind of looped vocal that happens throughout the whole track. And it actually starts off by being filtered in on the first breakdown. So as you can hear there, the vocal is kind of filtering in. I'm using a filter to kind of filter that top end in, and at the end of the breakdown, it kind of fully lets go and the vocal comes in full with everything else. So that vocal pretty much goes throughout the whole track, but I've also got another 2 vocal samples within there just to kind of layer things up a little bit and make it feel like it's an actual choir kind of singing along with the track. So you got lots of different vocal layers and elements that are kind of doing things. So you have this kind of yeah vocal that's happening, this very kind of sharp yeah. But then I've also got this kind of more kind of crowd kind of sound that's kind of almost just kind of backing it up a little bit. And again, this is kind of filtered in as it kind of goes along. So again, they're kind of singing yeah, and I think it's actually in a slightly different pitch, and I've kind of pitched that down a little bit, and then they all kind of layer nicely together. And those layers kind of come in and out throughout the whole track. But then on the breakdown, I wanted this kind of real kind of live kind of feel. So I took out most of the drums. They've kind of filtered down a bit. I've taken out that big kick, which really obviously drives it all along. But I've kind of kept that bass and the piano going there, filtered out a little bit. But then we've got that kind of vocal going along that's kind of got that live kind of effect. And I've also put some effects in the background that kind of give it that live kind of feel. So some crowd noise within there. It's really low in the mix, but it kind of gives that live kind of feel. It's definitely one of my tricks. So that's pretty much how the track kind of came about. It was all about that piano sample, and I was building everything around it. I was just pure vibing on that sample and adding stuff that kind of felt good. And that's generally what I do with a lot of my tracks. It's all about kind of finding a vibe and then just rolling with it and seeing what kind of comes from it. And the track, it just worked. I was playing it for the whole of the summer of 2019. And yes, it's had a break for about 18 months. But I'm so glad that it's finally coming out on Space Disco Records, and I'm glad that people are going to finally be able to hear it. It's going to be something I'm probably going to be playing in my sets for years. It's one of those tracks that just works, just gives the vibes, gives the happiness, and yeah, I hope you guys like it.